All right, everybody. Merry Christmas Eve to everyone out there who will be hopefully listening or watching this sometime on Tuesday, Christmas Eve. Hope it is a good one for you. Welcome to episode 950, Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Big thank you to everyone out there, as always, for watching, for listening, following, subscribing. You guys are the best. I appreciate you very, very much. I also appreciate today's presenting sponsor, Sunny Reds, 1841 Abbott Road in Lackawanna, just minutes away down the road from Highmark Stadium, one of the best places anywhere in Western New York for wings, brick oven pizza, burgers, fish fries, just vibes. Great time there. Love that place. Big supporter of this show. So please make sure if you're around that area that you get out and support them as well. All right. This is our weekly biggest Buffalo Bills takeaway. Of course, this the week 16 episode. I have now rewatched the game, watched the all 22, spent some time on PFF going through the grades that they assigned, the analysis, looking at some of the advanced numbers, slept on the game like always, and now I have my biggest takeaways stemming from that. We'll get into that. Just a quick minute here. Got to say this. And again, if you're watching this, I know there'll be a couple people at least that are catching the video side late on Monday night, but for the vast majority of you, hopefully at least anyway, you're finding some time to check this out on Tuesday, Christmas Eve. This has been, and I don't know, maybe it's different here in Western New York if you live in this area. It just feels like Christmas just, you blink your eye and it went from Thanksgiving to Christmas. I don't know. I don't know. It feels for me, I just haven't really found the time or opportunity to really sit back and enjoy it. You know, Christmas movies, I usually bang out a ton of them. I barely watched any movies this year. Haven't listened to a lot of Christmas music, TV specials, just things. I don't know. It just everything seemed to happen for me, at least anyway. I'd love to know if you feel the same. In the blink of an eye. I mean, I think there's a couple factors that definitely attribute to that. Thanksgiving was a week later than normal, so that was near the very end of November. So you have that. Also, 2 of the past 3 weeks before this weekend, major snowstorms. At least if you live in the South towns, you ain't get shit. Of course, like always, if you live in the North towns, but if you live in the South towns anyway, got pummeled with snow. And both times it was a Friday, Saturday weekend, which of course is when you probably would have spare time to really enjoy Christmas more. I don't know. Maybe that just sounds like a shitty, sorry excuse, and it's just me. But between 2 major snowstorms, like I said, a late Thanksgiving, it just creeped by so fast. I cannot believe it's Christmas Eve already. Just weird. Anyway, I really hope that you've enjoyed this holiday season. Of course, that you have a fantastic Christmas. All right, getting into this game here against the New England Patriots. First and foremost, let's not forget the most important thing. I don't care how bad a team is when you play a divisional game, they're never easy. They're never easy in the NFL, period, let alone when you're playing a divisional opponent. Let's not lose sight completely of the fact that the Buffalo Bills did find a way to win 24-21. They are 12-3. They're well on their way to being the 2 seed at worst. So, look, a lot more good than bad, especially when you look at the big picture. That said, I kind of break these down week by week, game by game, and a little bit of a forewarning for the audience today. I ain't trying to be Ebenezer Scrooge, not by any means, but a lot of the takeaways that I have today aren't really of the positive variety. The Bills, for the most part, played like crap. They played like crap on Sunday, and they got away with it, which is great. It's great. It's great in the standings. And with most of the things that happened on Sunday, my concern level about things going forward is a zero, really. But it was a mediocre day for the Buffalo Bills. And today's breakdowns, takeaways, analysis, whatever you want to call it, is for the most part going to correspond with that. And that's not me hating on the Buffalo Bills whatsoever. For starters, I'm sure a lot of you watching or listening were very frustrated watching that game yesterday. I'm sure that you've read or listened to or watched a lot of Bills recaps by this point from, podcasters, content creators, media, and all different levels, voicing a lot of frustration with this game. And maybe, most significantly, you want to go past what fans think or past what content creators or media think. I thought Jay Skursky from the Buffalo News had a brilliant tweet observation following the game. During the Sean McDermott press conference after the game, Jay noted, and I thought, at least based on listening to Sean now for several years after these games, Jay noted that this was probably the most annoyed that Sean McDermott has ever been following a Bills win. And I thought that was a really good observation from Jay, and I completely concur with that. Sean McDermott sounded anything but happy with this team following that game. And I'll tell you what, man, Christmas or not, probably not going to be the most fun film session and week of practice with Sean McDermott as they head into week 17 here at home to round out the home regular season part of the schedule against the New York Jets. So yeah, man, even Sean McDermott was really annoyed with his football team, and he should be. Before I get into negative stuff, because there's plenty, I kind of want to, it is Christmas here, it's Christmas Eve. I don't want to set the vibe, feel good, at least early on, and I want to get into the things that I really like the most about this game. And you can take both sides of the football. For me personally, my best takeaway in terms of something that's positive with the Bills is James Cook again. I think at this point, James Cook, if he's not there already, he is really starting to become a special player for this football team. To me, there's no doubt about it. James Cook carried the Buffalo Bills to a victory on Sunday. He was a force on the offense, and they needed it because this was a day, and we'll talk about this, where the passing game really couldn't get anything of substance and sustainability going at all. Fortunately, it didn't matter, and a large part of that is James Cook. And we've seen the signs over the first couple of years with him, but this seems to be the season, numbers aside, where he's just really putting everything together. The combination of patience and vision that he has, which, I've said this a handful of times on the show. It feels like a good time to say it again. I look at the way James Cook is playing football right now, and I constantly think back to Le'Veon Bell when he was at his best with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just patient as can be, outstanding vision, underrated sneaky toughness. Like, he is running through tacklers. He's running angry at times, which I don't think you saw a lot of his first 2 seasons in this league. And what we're seeing now more than ever is that breakaway speed is just, it is a sight to behold. Once that train gets going, it goes fast and you ain't stopping it. I think back to that Frisco game a handful of weeks ago when he got that corner and he ran in the snow at a speed that I don't remember what it was at, but it was like it was the fastest run of his career, one of the fastest of anybody in the league this entire season. He gets to that level and then bam. So it's patience, it's vision, it's breaking a tackle, it's seeing things, and then it's making that bounce. Or sometimes it's just inside and then outside where he gets going and you're just not stopping him. Like that touchdown run that he had, that 47-yarder was pretty much the entire offense for the Bills in the first half. Far and away their best play of the game. Just a thing of beauty. Although, to be fair, if you're a New England fan, you're pretty mad about that play You're not mad at it because nobody on New England can make a stop. You're mad at it because the play should have been a penalty. The Bills should have had a delay of game penalty, and they got away with that. But anyway, just a gorgeous run by James Cook. And when you watch it back on film, too, big shout outs to, well, most of the offensive line, but especially two players in particular. Connor McGovern, the center, snapped the ball. He got out quick to get to that linebacker. And then Osiris Torrance had a gorgeous block to help spring Cook for that touchdown. Also, he scored the other touchdown. They scored 2 offensive touchdowns. James Cook responsible for both of them. Held on to the ball. A short pass from Josh Allen. He had to reach out. He had to get it. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but that's a catch that he might drop last year. He dropped a handful of catches like that last year. Holds on to the ball. Just a big, big game for James Cook. He averaged 9.1 yards per carry rushing, and he averaged over 9 yards per touch on 14 touches. James Cook was easily, to me anyway, the best player on the Bills on Sunday against the Patriots. James Cook has had 100 yards of rushing now 3 times over the last 4 weeks. That is in itself impressive for sure, but that's not completely uncommon among NFL running backs. But here's the thing, folks. James Cook has had 100 yards of rushing 3 times in the past 4 weeks, and all of them have been on less than 15 carries. It's not like he's being a workhorse running back, getting the rock 18 to 24 times a game and just, cumulatively adding up the yards to get to 100. He's getting there on 15 carries or less, and he's doing it now, like I said, 3 times in the last 4 weeks. He's finding the end zone too now, more than ever. 14 rushing touchdowns this season, 17 total. 3rd all-time right now in rushing touchdowns, just 1 behind Josh from last year, 2 behind O.J. Simpson in 1975, and he's already now 2nd all-time in total touchdowns from scrimmage with 17. Got a long way to go. Probably not going to get there to catch O.J. O.J. had 23 back in 75. Still, though, it's a special season for him, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of people in the camp, and I've been there for the most part as well, where you say you don't give a running back a big second contract. And I understand the logic. And when you look at the Bills and a lot of these younger players who will be coming into contract either years next year or the year after that, and you got a lot of tough, big decisions to make. You want to retain this core. You've been really good at producing efficient running backs, Ty Johnson, Ray Davis. That's why maybe you draft him. So I get the camp that, hey, James Cook's going to go get some money somewhere else. He's not going to get the bag in Buffalo. I don't know, man. I don't know. You might want to reconsider that. You might want to reconsider not paying James Cook because the production he has given him and the player that he's becoming this year is definitely special. And we're seeing the skill set that we hoped he would have coming out of Georgia. I think we're seeing it all start to come together right now. Another player that I thought did a really good job on Sunday was Dorian Williams. I thought Dorian Williams was fantastic. And we talked about it on the live reaction show last night. I had Joe from Queens on. We kind of went back and forth and argued with it, actually. But I'm of the mindset right now that I think Sean McDermott, if he didn't have one already, I think he's going to have himself a Dorian Williams versus Matt Milano, who should be the starter conundrum. I really do. I think maybe my biggest takeaway from this game is that the defense got exponentially better when Dorian Williams was in the game and stayed in the game after Balin Spector, who was, you saw it. I don't really need to say it. You know how Balin Spector played. I spent way too much time talking about it yesterday. I almost felt bad. It kind of started to feel like a personal attack on Balin Spector. I'm sure he's a good person. He's a good dude. There's no such thing as terrible NFL players. You're not a terrible athlete. You don't get to the NFL. You don't get to the highest level in the world if you're a terrible football player. But it is what it is, man. That guy just looks badly overmatched, and he can't stay healthy. And he got hurt again. But this time, with all due respect to him, injuring that calf again was a blessing to the Bills defense. because this defense got way better when Dorian Williams was on the field to stay. Sean McDermott went into this game, so Matt Milano was inactive, and Dorian Williams is coming off an elbow injury. Baylor Spector has had a calf injury, so Sean McDermott, and I understand why, decided that he wanted to have load management. He didn't want to overload, and he said this, either player with too many reps because they're battling through injury. He had to have enough linebackers out there, especially with Milano out. So I get that. But Baylor Spector, let's just, again, generously say, wasn't getting the job done. Dorian Williams was only playing a little bit here and there early on in the game. But once Spector hurt his calf, Williams came in, and the defense was just much, much better. It is impressive to watch at times, a lot of the times, Dorian Williams play. The physicality, the athleticism, the ability to fill these run gaps. He is so good at coming up and stopping the run for a linebacker. He's so good. Lots of quarterback pressures, too. He was getting after the quarterback. Credit to Antonio Gibson, the running back for New England, who just did an outstanding job picking up blitz blocks. Drake may probably get sacked 8 times were it not for the pass blocking of Antonio Gibson, who was just picking up blitz after blitz after blitz. But anyway, Dorian Williams was outstanding in all aspects of those games. And I said, going into this week, when I had my Bills Patriots preview, I remember talking about the injured guys. And I'm not going to be a hypocrite because, after the game, I was a little angry. Not angry, but I thought Sean McDermott was a little overconfident. I thought the fact that nobody on the Bills did not participate. No DMPs at practice last week. Everybody was limited. Nobody was ruled out on Friday. Everybody was questionable. And pretty much every single person was questionable. None of them played. And I think that was mostly a product of Sean McDermott just saying we should be able to win at home against the 3-11 New England Patriots without risking any of our starters, key players, to further injury. I got no issue with that mindset, with the exception of Matt Milano. And I said this on the preview before the game. Matt Milano badly needs more reps. And he's running out of time now to get those reps and to get that playing time. I think he's running out of time at this point. He's played 3 games. He has an injured groin. I don't know if he could have played. Like if this was a playoff game, if this was, a must-win game, if they were playing for the 1 seed, is Matt Milano active? Who knows? My gut tells me he could have been, but I think he needs to play. And I think he's running out of time. The 3 games where Matt Milano played before re-injuring the groin, or not re-injuring, before injuring the groin, I thought he was just all right. Very average, very pedestrian from Matt Milano. And that's not me dissing him. That's not, me hating on him whatsoever. That's to be expected. The dude hasn't played a football game in well over a calendar year before a couple of weeks ago. Shit takes time to get back. I get that. I truly do. But again, this can't be a popularity contest. This can't be a blind loyalty contest right now. This can't be, this guy has been an all-pro player. He has been a stud for this team for a very long time. All that's got to go out the window because you need to have your best players on the football field when everything is at stake. Like there ain't none at stake this game, you could argue, for the Bills Patriots, or at least that's the way it felt. It's certainly the way the Bills looked for a lot of this game, like there wasn't a lot at stake. So I get it why Matt Milano wouldn't play, along with all the other starters too. But you get to the playoffs, man, everything's at stake. You lose, you're done. You're done. And at this point right now, I just feel like Dorian Williams is the better player than Matt Milano right now. If Matt Milano plays at all these last 2 weeks, and we're going to talk about how Sean McDermott might handle these last 2 weeks here before the end of the show, but if Milano plays at all these last 2 weeks, and I certainly hope he's going to, regardless of whether the Bills got anything locked up or not, I got to see more. He's got to be way better in those games than we've seen him through the first 3. Now, in fairness, Joe from Queens did have a good point on the show yesterday. The New England Patriots aren't very good, and Joe was confident that if Milano played yesterday, that he probably looks good against the New England Patriots, better than he's looked in any of the other three games. It's at least something to think about. But I'm starting to get concerned about him. I hate the fact that he missed out on reps in playing time on Sunday. And when you combine that with the fact that I just think Dorian Williams was really, really good on Sunday, to me, it's a legitimate conundrum. One of maybe the biggest one that Sean McDermott will have facing him going into the playoffs. Quickly here before we get to a break, other things that I thought were really good, or at least good, before I do get into a lot of negative stuff from this game. I thought the offensive line played well, both blocking for James Cook and protecting Josh Allen. You know, I'm looking at the PFF stats right now, and offensively, the blocking was good. I mean, these guys on the offensive line, four of them had over a 65 grade. The only one who got a bad PFF grade was Osiris Torrance, which I thought was just completely ridiculous and stupid. I don't know what PFF has against Osiris Torrance, but I've been pretty hard on Osiris myself at times, but I thought he played really good. Anyway, I thought the offensive line did a good job. It wasn't, a lack of blocking, too much pressure on Josh while the offense was stymied. There was other factors beyond that. The line I thought played pretty well. I thought Greg Rousseau had a few great individual plays in the moment where, big time edge players make big time plays. And I thought Groot stepped up with a few of them when the Bills needed him. I thought Cam Lewis struggled really bad early on, but made a couple nice plays in the second half. That interception, a great read and really nice athletic interception. And that was a huge play in the game. So Cam Lewis struggled, but he atoned for it. He redeemed himself with a huge play that went a long way towards the Bills winning that game. And then, I said it yesterday. Didn't end up, it did end up being a big deal because they literally won by 3 points. Tyler Bass nailing a 50-yarder right down the middle. I hesitate to give him credit because when I think that there's, he's out of whatever slump he may be in, he goes and he shanks a 24-yarder like he did last week. But, I've said it all season. I feel like at some point, if the Bills are going to make a deep playoff run, it's going to likely come down to Tyler Bass, either winning a game with the kick or putting them up 2 scores that they're going to need to put a team away with a kick. And I want to have confidence in them. And if you're looking for that, obviously nailing a 50-yarder and nailing both extra points in really, really cold weather was a pretty big deal for me. Anyway, all right, I'm going to take a quick break, come back. You're going to fly through a lot of these, man. It's Christmas Eve. I'm not trying to keep you here for another 30 minutes, but we're going to get to a lot of the negative stuff with the Buffalo Bills right after this break. All right, we are back here. Christmas Eve episode 950, by the way, of Talking Buffalo, and going over my biggest Week 16 Buffalo Bills takeaways, a 24-21, too close for comfort win over the Patriots. Oh, look, the defense, big takeaway here, and pretty obvious one, too. This defense is just too reliant right now on getting takeaways. And yes, it did work on Sunday. They got 3 of them all in the second half, and it accounted for 10 points. I don't think it's a sustainable method for success. One of them, the 3 takeaways, was just a great play. Greg Rousseau and Bernard also a hand in it as well. Punched the ball from Stevenson, and then Dorian Williams fell on the ball for the recovery. That was a great individual play by the defense. Quite frankly, I think the other 2 were gifts. I talked about Cam Lewis making a really nice athletic interception in the end zone, and it was. But Drake May, who I thought for the most part played very well. If I'm a New England Patriots fan, I'm not, but if I was, I'd be excited about him. He showed me a lot of poise, a lot of patience, a lot of composure against a defense that was aggressively trying to get after him, and it didn't work. I thought he played pretty well with not a lot around him whatsoever. So I'm excited if I'm a Patriots fan. But anyway, as well as he played, the dumbest thing he did all day, the biggest mistake he made was throwing that ball in the end zone. It was telegraphed, and it was an easy read for Lewis to have an opportunity to make the interception. That's just a throw that you can't have. Drake May, you can't be doing that. Just a bad throw. So that was a gift. And then the lateral near their own goal line, what a disaster that was. A backwards pass. Greg Rousseau puts the hit on Stevenson. He sees it coming, drops the ball. Rousseau knocks him down. Still can't believe Greg Rousseau didn't fall on the ball himself for the touchdown. It looked awkward and weird. But anyway, thankfully, Teron Johnson was there. Again, easy defensive touchdown for the Bills. It was a gift, just like the interception. So 2 of those 3 turnovers were kind of lucky, is what I'm telling you. And, when you don't get the takeaways, is the way this defense plays is just not good enough. The way that game started, too, and it's not the first time the Bills have come out sleepwalking. We've seen it a lot, especially earlier in the season. But it's alarming the way this defense is playing, and I don't care if guys are out or not. Maybe it makes a lot more sense and you can understand it more a lot last week when you're playing the Detroit Lions, but you're at home against the Patriots, against a very bad Patriots team with a really shitty offensive line and not a lot of weapons. To start out that way defensively was just inexcusable. So between the end of the Detroit game and the start of this New England game, the Bills defense gave up a touchdown 6 straight drives. That just can't happen. That can't happen. This is a defense that can't get off the field. 5 of 5, the first 5 third down opportunities New England had, they converted them. 5 of 5. They ended the game 7 of 12. The Bills defense right now on third downs over the last 3 games is dead last in the NFL. Dead last. The Bills are giving up 60% third down conversion percentage over the last 3 games. It's dead last in the NFL. Hasn't been good this entire season. The Bills are just 29th in the NFL in third down stops. 29th. 44.44% of the time, teams are faced with the third down, regardless of what the distance is, they're converting. That's awful. And it's not like it's terrible on the road, but it's great at home. They're just 26th in the season at home. They've allowed nearly a 42% third down conversion. That's going to kill them in a playoff game. It's going to kill them in a playoff game. Unless they find a way to get 2 or 3 takeaways, which again, their bonuses and good teams do force turnovers, okay? They're not all luck. A lot of the time it's skilled players making skill plays. But man, oh man, that is a slippery slope if your defense, if you're predicating it on relying on being able to get turnovers. It's hard to watch at times, and they've been, for the most part, like I said, in the second half, they've held opponents at 9.4 points per game in the second half. That's 7th best in the league. But again, that's in large part because of the turnovers. And doing it now is fine. But if you're banking on forcing, you're not going to have the Drake Mays and the Joe Flaccos and the washed up versions of Aaron Rodgers of the world come playoff time. You're not going to suck them into these game-altering mistakes. You're going to have to do that to Lamar Jackson and to Russ Wilson, Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud, Patrick Mahomes. That's a big ask to expect your defense to be able to thrive because of turnovers. This team has got to find a way, especially to get stops on third down, because they've just been awful at it. And I think kind of lead into another takeaway here. By and large, the Bills' defensive lines they're not consistently good enough. Groot has been very consistent this season. To me, he's an exception. And again, he was a big factor on Sunday, the forced fumble, the hit on Stevenson on the lateral. Again, he should have had that touchdown. 7.5 sacks. He leads the team. 7.5 sacks is nothing too special, but he's been really, really good. I mean, 16 tackles for a loss is tied for 6th best in the NFL. And I'll tell you, when you look at that list, Max Crosby, Danielle Hunter, Ben Ginkel, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett. That's it. That's the list. Those are the only guys in the entire league that have more tackles for a loss this season than Groot. So he's been solid. But after that, it's shaky. Like Ed Oliver to me remains like this big enigma. Like last week, Detroit, absolutely fantastic, man. He crushed it. 10 pressures. He was great. A couple weeks before that against Kansas City. I remember week 2 in Miami. He was awesome. But then he's absent in other games. Completely absent and irrelevant. I won't go that far for this game. I thought he was okay against the Patriots. PFF disagreed. They actually thought he was great. They had him at like an 81.7 grade, second best of anybody on the Bills. I don't agree with that at all. He did have a one hit on Drake May. Man, he lit him up. But yeah, a couple pressures, but all in all, it's just kind of a mostly irrelevant game for Ed Oliver against a weak offensive line in a game that somebody, the talent, the skill of Ed Oliver should be able to take over. And he just didn't. And I know, sacks can be deceiving. I know stats can be misleading. But at the end of the day, 2 sacks on the season is 2 sacks on the season. That's not good enough. I expect Ed Oliver to have 2 sacks in a game when it's a meaningful one. And I'm not even talking about this game specifically, obviously. I said meaningful. I'm talking about a January game. I said it last week. I'll say it again. Bills ain't going to go to the Super Bowl if Ed Oliver is just pedestrian. He's got to be more than just pedestrian. Von Miller. He's getting near the quarterback, but he's not getting home. He had 6 pressures this game. I get it. A lot of people are high on that. He had the highest PFF grade of anybody on the team. 83.0 PFF overall grade for this football game. Best of anybody on the Buffalo Bills. I just don't see it. I don't. I get the pressures, okay? But you got to make one of them count. Von Miller's got 1 sack in his last 8 games. And this is a guy who's, specializes in getting the quarterback to the ground. And he's just got 1 sack over his last 8 games. Pressures, fine. Okay? But he's not getting home. Drake May smoked him on a bootleg on a 4th down play. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I thought Von Miller looked a little bit, I don't want to say he was out there dogging it, but it looked a little lackadaisical at times with the effort, with the hustle, when the play got away from him. He's going to be another key. Again, he needs to be better in the playoffs when it matters. These pressures that he's getting, he's got to convert 1 or 2 of them into a sack. Daquan Jones, very ordinary. Same with AJ Epinesa. Same with Austin Johnson. Dwayne Carter was, I believe, a healthy inactive for this game. I expect more from those guys, and they're going to need more. They're going to look, if the Bills are going to go on a 3-week run and get to the Super Bowl, outside of Josh Allen being the best player on the field, which goes without saying, I think to me the second biggest thing that needs to happen for the Bills is this defensive line needs to be better. They ain't getting to a Super Bowl with Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones just being average to below average in the middle of that defense. It ain't happening. It's not. Kaiir Elam. I think you probably saw the last of Kaiir Elam as a starter. And I think the end of his run with the Buffalo Bills is going to be coming at the end of this season. I kind of feel like I owe Sean McDermott a little bit of an apology. I've wondered out loud why Sean doesn't let this guy play more. Like why he hasn't gotten these opportunities. I feel like he's played pretty well in games, but there's just always something that's held him back. And we've speculated or heard or whatever, doesn't practice very well. He gets, the holding calls very handsy. Maybe he's just not picking up concepts in team meetings, stuff like that. Like I thought it was very telling when Russell Douglas got hurt 2 weeks ago and Sean McDermott refused to kind of like endorse publicly Kaiir Elam, saying he's going to have to earn it. And we didn't even know until the Detroit game started if it was going to be him or Ingram starting in place of Douglas. Obviously, it turned out to be Elam. And he was okay in Detroit, but it was terrible. And I mean terrible against the Patriots. He gave up a touchdown on the first drive of the game, which to be fair to him was actually one of the best plays of the game for him. I mean, the coverage was really, really good. It was just an elite Josh Allen-esque, Patrick Mahomes-esque throw from May for the touchdown. There's not much more Elam realistically could have done on that play. That aside, though, they picked on him, they targeted him, and they beat him. They beat him. On the day, statistically, officially, he gave up 5 catches on 7 targets for 73 yards and that touchdown. And that doesn't count 2 penalties on that last New England drive. That doesn't count another play that was a drop. I think it was Douglas on a play that he was definitely beat on. Drake May had a 144.6 passer rating when targeting Elam. And to me, that last drive was just symbolic of the Kaiir Elam era. 2 defensive pass interference calls in the end zone. One of them you could say is a little ticky tack. The other one was blatant. Again, holding has always been his problem in his hands. And you can see it in practice, even in training camp, even just as a fan sitting there watching the practices in training camp. I remember 2 years ago, Stephon Diggs was going at it with him over how much Elam was holding. There's just things, the things that Kaiir Elam is good at, he's good at. The things that he struggles with, I don't think he's ever going to not struggle with. He's always going to. And it was my hope going into, even as recently as this game on Sunday, that if Rasul Douglas leaves the Buffalo Bills next year, if they say, we can't pay everybody, we got to let Rasul walk. I'm like, all right, well, maybe you got your built-in CB2 for next year in Kaiir Elam. But after this, I don't think it's him. And I don't think it's a money move. I think that's a football decision that Sean McDermott's going to make. It's going to be time to move on. And I understand now more so than ever why Sean McDermott just doesn't trust this guy. And it's obvious. And I'm at a point now where for the rest of this season, where the Bills really can't make any moves. But if something were to happen to Rasul Douglas again, or God forbid, Christian Benford, I'm going with Jamarcus Ingram the rest of the way over Kaiir Elam. Just cannot trust this guy to not have a critical penalty go against him, not to mention getting beat. Another thing I thought was interesting during the game, but especially after it, was Sean McDermott kind of more or less calling out special teams coach Matthew Smiley. The Bills lined up for a punt return on that 4th and 1 where New England faked it, saw it. They called the play. Credit to them. It worked. Instead of a 4th and safe defense, as Sean McDermott likes to call it. And Sean called that out after the game. I think he has finally grown tired of the weekly Buffalo Bills special teams blunders. And he's not masking his displeasure about it anymore either. That play, they also allowed a 42-yard kick return, opening kick to start the game. I think Matthew Smiley may be looking for new work when this season is over. In terms of the wide receivers, I'm not going to get into this today because, again, it's Christmas Eve. I don't want to have an hour episode. Just take my word for it. Trust me, you saw it yourself. Wide receiver separation was a problem in this game. First time I've noticed it in a while. Guys just weren't getting open. Josh Allen would eventually get flushed out of the pocket, almost always to his right. And even with the extra time, just guys weren't open. And Josh kind of like tying 2 takeaways here together. I think maybe part of that reason might be Josh more or less admitted that, it was a vanilla game plan. Like they don't want to show all their cards. And Josh alluded to that, before the playoffs. Like they got supposedly some tricks up their sleeve or something. I don't know, but it was pretty obvious to see. So I don't think Josh was lying. Like the Bills were running a lot of basic ass routes that were pretty easy to defend, even for New England, who again, they just don't have a lot of talent on either side of the football. So it was a little puzzling to see. But when you watch it back, not a lot of motion, not a lot of pre-snap audibles from Josh, not a lot of bootlegs, not any trick plays, none of it. It's pretty obvious that they were just running a basic, I won't go as far to say preseason offense, but not that far off from it. Amari Cooper, just 2 targets in this game, no targets the week before against Detroit. I'm not sure yet if that's concerning me or, I'm wondering if they're really saving stuff with him for the playoffs. I don't want to jump to any major conclusions there. I just think all in all, this was a game, of the Bills being overconfident. They didn't really have to show, anything unique, anything different. So, and I see the point of that. That's not really a criticism. I do see the point. Like, why are you going to pull out all the stops when you're at home against the New England Patriots? You shouldn't You shouldn't need to, especially late in the season where, you really don't want to show anything. But yeah, it was obvious, man. Just wide receivers, just a lousy job of creating separation. Probably because a lot of the routes were just, like I said, basic primitive routes. Just all in all, a very sloppy performance from the Buffalo Bills. It really, truly was. Oh, I had to get a sip of water there quickly. Anyway, 13 penalties, and six of them were pre snap penalties. So almost half their penalties were pre snap penalties. That was really frustrating. There were points of the game where it felt like the Bills were trying to get New England to win this game, and New England was just like, "No, we're not going to do that." James Cook fumbled, Khalil Shakir fumbled. I think they were both might have even been on the same drive. Both were recovered, thankfully, by the Bills. That was James Cook's first fumble of the year. That might be the first time I've ever seen Khalil Shakir fumble. Speaking of, Khalil Shakir also dropped that long pass in the second quarter right through his arms. You never see that. He also had an offensive pass interference penalty. A very uncharacteristic game for sure for Khalil Shakir, and I am not concerned about him. He'll be fine. Just one of those days at the office for number 10. And then, of course, the fake punt mix-up, which we talked about. Like I said, just all in all, a very sloppy game. And then the last thing, not so much about this game, but going forward, I'm really interested in seeing how Sean McDermott plays the last 2 weeks out if the number 2 seed is already locked in before they face the Jets, which, by the way, it has been confirmed that game is staying Sunday at 1 p.m., not getting flexed and moved to 4:25. Thank God. I hated that shit this week, man. Give me 1 o'clock games. Anyway, if on Christmas, because there are 2 big games now, Wednesday on Christmas, if Kansas City beats Pittsburgh and if Houston at home beats Baltimore on Christmas, both of them very feasible outcomes, the Bills will be locked into the number 2 seed. In terms of standings, they will have literally nothing to play for, not just week 18, but week 17 as well. And I'm sure Sean McDermott is working on figuring out some kind of balance between getting key guys or a lot of guys rest over these last 2 weeks, but also having the team sharp going into the playoffs. I knowing Sean McDermott the way we do, I can't see Sean being happy with how they played on Sunday and saying, you know what? If my starters, most of them don't play another snap before the playoffs, I'm going to feel good about the way we're looking. I think maybe the fact that they played sloppy and ugly against New England might change that a little bit. Also, you could say it doesn't matter at all you want, but I'd be willing to bet that Sean McDermott really wants Josh Allen to get that MVP, probably as much as most of the Bills fans do. And him sitting out Josh Allen for the last 2 games instead of 1, that at least possibly could hurt his chances. So you might not see Josh sit the last 2 games in part because of that reason. Now, if it were me, everyone who's been in this rodeo before with the Bills in the postseason playoffs, I think they'd be sitting as much as humanly possible for the past 2, or I should say the last 2 games. Not 1 game, 2 games, if there's nothing to play for. Definitely Josh Allen. Sorry, MVP voters out there, but I know what Josh can do. He don't need to play a half against the Jets to show me anything. I know what he is. James Cook, again, too valuable on offense. I'm not risking him. Khalil Shakir, ditto. Deion Dawkins, ditto. Connor McGovern, your center, ditto. That's 5 guys on offense. Y'all regular season is done if you got nothing to play for as far as I'm concerned. Defensively, pretty much that entire front 4, Vaughn, Ed, Groot, DeQuan, take a seat. You might get a snap here or 2 in there because, it's a little bit different. We'll get into that in a second. But those guys up front, definitely Terrell Bernard, definitely Christian Benford, maybe even Russell Douglas, Taylor Rapp. They can all be done as far as I'm concerned. Now, the difference is this, though. I just ran off a lot of players. They can't all sit every single snap because you only got so many backups out there who are physically capable of even playing. I mean, this isn't a preseason game. You don't have 90-man rosters. You only get 47 guys active plus 2 practice squad elevations, which the Bills obviously would surely use for that reason. You can't sit every single starter, so you got to prioritize them. But I'm sitting as many as I possibly can. But like we talked about, one of them is not going to be Matt Milano. If Matt Milano's healthy enough to play, I'd have him out there, not just week 17, but week 18 too. I need to see Matt Milano being closer to who he's been before I can even consider him over Dorian Williams in a playoff game at this point. All that said, I don't think Sean will operate with that mindset. I think he probably wants his team to look right facing the Jets before the finale, and then the starters definitely sit in the finale, assuming it doesn't mean nothing, of course. There's a case to be made, and it's a fair one, that you want to look your best going into the playoffs. You want momentum, confidence in your team going into the playoffs. And then the last thing, which I also think is a very fair point, one that might be, debated a lot over the next handful of days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, if things don't go the Bills' way with the Christmas Day games. There's a case to be made that 2 weeks of rest instead of just one would create some early wild card round rust. I could definitely buy that. Sitting out a week is one thing. Sitting out 2 weeks, that may become a long time. And you might have potential rust as a factor in the first quarter or so of a playoff game. So that's alarming. It's going to be interesting. I really hope the Bills are still in play for the one, or that they're at least like they need to win to get the 2 seed on Sunday, because I'm ready to see this roster. I want to see another full game with this roster. You hope nobody's going to get hurt first and foremost, but I want to see them look good. Then you sit in Foxborough against New England, and it would just, and plus one other little side and bonus thing. It'd be really nice to reward the fans, cap off a win on Sunday. It would be just the 3rd ever undefeated home record or season for the Buffalo Bills. So that's going to be interesting to see. We'll know a lot more by Wednesday night for sure. We'll know where the Bills stand. As for this show, I don't think we're going to have a Christmas episode. We're definitely not going to have anything new. So if you do happen to see something in the feed on Wednesday, Christmas morning, you want to give it a listen, it'll probably be a replay. I'll probably look for like maybe my favorite interview or something like that for the past year. Something along those lines, but I'm not even sure. Regardless, we're going to have a bonus episode. Expect a Saturday episode of Talking Buffalo. Thursday night, I am still trying to hook up a place where Joe from Queens and I could meet to do a live show in person, which would be a lot of fun. So look for that potentially Thursday night. I know I'm going to have Matt Moran from SB Nation, as I usually do. Usually he's my Wednesday guest, but again, with it being Christmas, he's going to be on either Friday or maybe even Saturday, and we'll have a Bills Jets preview talk, NFL, and all that other fun stuff. But anyway, thank you again, and probably won't hear from you or talk to you guys again until after Christmas. So I sincerely hope that you have a wonderful Christmas. I am very, very grateful to have an audience to podcast for. I promise you, it does not go unnoticed. I'm so grateful for that. So thank you very much. And if I don't talk to you, have an awesome, awesome Christmas.